Friends, the Christian church, the faith group that I am a part of, works on climate change for two reasons. The first is, as people of faith, we are called to make the journey to the margins of human existence, where people are hurting and dying. You cannot, I'm the provocateur here this morning, because that's what you do when you're talking as a panelist. You cannot be a follower of Jesus unless you go to the margins. Jesus was in his life on earth, and he remains in his resurrected self on the margins. We will not find him or follow him unless we go there. We may gather in Bible studies in our church. We may gather around the communion table in our cathedrals and have the sacrament. But if that's all we do, we will soon discover that Jesus has left the building and left us alone at the communion table, pretending like we were having a sacrament, when in fact the sacrament has moved outside, where his body is broken, his blood is being shed in the violence and chaos of our world. And unless we go to the margins, where Jesus is giving his life, we will miss him. In Matthew 25, we have what scholars say is the clearest words from Jesus about what will happen on the day we are held accountable. You've heard the words, you know them. I was hungry, I was thirsty, I was naked, I was in prison, and you went to the margins and came to me. And what my story about the apartment building is trying to say and lift up is that it's not just about soup kitchens and homeless shelters and demonstrations to fight war anymore. It is about those things. We have got to save the 50 who are in danger of dying. We've got to feed the children. We've got to reach out to the poor. We must continue to agitate for peace in the world. But it's just not that simple anymore. For the grandest and most sweeping engagement in that work, with the least of these, on the largest scale, is without question climate change. And we have already, and this is what a group you all are in terms of your education. We already covered that in the exercise that Claire and Aaron did, so I don't need to go into what makes for real war in the future, what makes for immigration crisis in the future, what's going to happen. If we think we've got an immigration crisis now, this will look like the good old days if we don't do something about climate change.
Wait, could you say that last line again? The powerful line about that you just said before you Maybe
I think we have an immigration crisis now.
About the immigration?
No, prior to that.
You're not counting this time against me. Okay, all right. Let's be clear. I was saying that all of those issues that you all have already touched on are just going to be completely over the top if we don't do something about climate change. That's one reason, okay? I said, I think I'm breaking it down to the two reasons as people of faith, which is what Deborah asked, I understood her to ask of me. But the second one I want to talk about, and that's where I want to spend a little time, and I'm going to go fast, but I'm doing it because I think we're hurting. We're hurting because we're feeling a lack of hope, and we're afraid of the future, and so I want to get at the other reason. Why do we care about the earth? Because drawing on Celtic and mystical traditions of the Christian faith, I would like to say that earth is God's body. Starting with the Genesis narrative, we begin with the proposition that scripture undoubtedly makes that God cannot be God without relationship. Before the Big Bang, things were frigging lonely. You all know the movie Tom Hanks. You remember, I don't even remember the name of it, where he's shipwrecked or something like that. On an island, we felt his loneliness. But he had that basketball, right? Whatever the name of that basketball was. And he was on an island. Before the Big Bang, God didn't even have an island. And if that was who God was, if God was a loner, that's the way it would have stayed. And you and I would not be here today. But God was not complete. In a very real way, God came into existence at the Big Bang. Just as much as galaxies and the dragonfly with the blue wings. Paul Tillich called God the ground of our being, and I like that. That points to God, the earth as God's body. But I want to go further and say that the earth is in some way the ground of God's being as well. Without earth, God is helpless to enact the greatest epic of all. The story of God in relationship with the other, the non-human and the human. The drama of salvation takes place on a stage. The stage has a name. It's called earth. John 1 is even more specific. In the beginning was the Word, and everything that has ever been made was the Word. In the beginning was God, the Word, and we're all of God. We're all sacred. And the earth is sacred. The earth is holy. The Ten Commandments. Many of you know the fifth commandment, honor your father and your mother, but what we forget is for the Hebrew, that was much more than about two people. It was about the sacredness and the holiness of beginnings. That's what the fifth commandment is about. Honor your father and your mother. Honor where you begin. So those two things are why we care about climate change and why we work for it. And I want to address our despair as I close. All of us, I heard, and all that Aaron and Claire did, where I heard the most energy was around our fear, our anger, our despair, the amount of carbon that's in the air. Can we stop it? Have we reached the tipping point? Shall we give up? So I want to tell you a story. My mother died in April of 2010 of lymphoma. She was 87. I went down to Florida to live with her and my dad for the last month of her life, and I did everything I knew. Doctor's appointments, hospice admission, took her to her beloved longtime women's Bible study to tell them goodbye, took her on a long last drive in her beloved country, arranged a last visit with her beloved sister, fixed food, cleaned, systematized meds, played music, read songs, sang hymns, wiped her face with a cool cloth. In doing all this, friends, I was well aware of her prognosis. Medically, scientifically, there was no hope for my mother. She was dying. Yet do you think that this knowledge, for even one instant, affected my diligent care of my mother? It did not occur to me to say, well, what's the use? It's too late. I'll just give up. Now, I know metaphors always break down, right? This one breaks down. My mother is gone from my sight. The earth will be here long after any of us are gone. But it's true nonetheless. Because my mother died, the metaphor is true just the same, because I was not motivated in my loving, gentle, vigilant care based on a prognosis. Rather, I was motivated to care for her because I loved her and honored her. She was the source of my life, the one who gave me creation, the beginning for me. And that is a motivation, friends, that is impervious to any lack of hope. The earth is our mother. She is holy. We love earth because she gave us life. She birthed us. We were scooped up out of her clay. She raised us, sustained us our whole life long. She has fed us and watered us and oxygenated us. She has held us up and supported us, the ground of our being. Her atmospheric veil has protected us from the void and radiation of space. She has blessed us each morning with the sacrament of sunrise and baptizes us daily with the gift of water. And at night, she opens to us the majesty of the Milky Way. Other people's motivations for caring for the earth, who are not faith people, are subject to coming and going, but not us. We love earth. We work for permaculture, for sustainability. We join political movements. We pressure our government. We work for divestment. We do civil disobedience, resisting the XL pipeline, because earth is holy. It is God's body, and in all things, people of faith will remain holy from the first day to the last, honoring and loving God, whom we have come to know intimately in Mother